WordPress is based on PHP and it utilizes MySQL for database. PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor, and MySQL is a type of database, a relational database where things can be stored. Now, the way it works is WordPress acts like a. Now, these two things can be independently also utilized without WordPress. So, WordPress essentially gives you a CMS, which stands for Content Management Software. Or rather, we should call it Content Management System. And in this case, what do we have as content? We have primarily text, images, and videos, right? But we also have hyperlinks, which can be rendered as a button. So this is what it means when we say content, these things. Now management essentially is just be able to work with these things in a way that's more organized and easier in a way. So when it comes to e-commerce websites, very often we have to upload, delete, remove the products, update product information. So if we just build a static website without any management system, then it becomes really difficult, especially if you have a lot of SKUs. And then managing these entire thing becomes cumbersome, right? If I'm just selling one or two items, then probably it is fine, right? Then we also need carting systems for a e-commerce website. We need separate modules, right? So we'll try and first decipher all those requirements and how it fits into the WordPress plus WooCommerce. So WordPress essentially is a CMS, but it is not offering right, from the default version, uh, the e-commerce facilities. So we use one more thing, which is called as WooCommerce. Now this is a plugin which has grown up over the years and became one of the leading WooCommerce integrations in WordPress, e-commerce integrations in WordPress, and extends WordPress's functionality to build fully functional payment ready websites where you can sell your digital products or physical products as well. So that's our agenda. That is what we are going to explore. Okay. Now, for understanding, so for WooCommerce, the primary factor would be letting us allow us create catalogs of the products, right? Define product, cart, and checkout, right? These are the fundamental things which we do in any e-commerce website. We browse the catalog and we check out the product. So let's call it product page, right? we define the product in the background so that we can have a product page. Then we add to the cart and then we check out. These are the fundamental things we work with. Now, if you combine these two, then you have a e-commerce website, right? If I combine the power of WordPress with WooCommerce, what do we get? We get a e-commerce website, right? Or rather we should call it a platform. Okay, so now the question here is, content we understand, right? Text, images, videos, hyperlinks, these things we understand. We also understand what a catalog means, what a product page is, cart and checkout. We have been dealing with this all our life. So absolutely no problem with these things. The problematic or the complicated area is the management system, correct? Because installing a plugin wouldn't require much. A single click will do that. So our target is to understand this management system, how this works. That's going to be the most critical part. We once we understand the system, then we can use it. And if we really are into it, then we can probably modify the system also. So all those extended features, functionalities are available. Ideally, when we start in a web environment, but that would cost you money. So I have thought of a different way, an easier and a more pocket friendly way to explore it. And later, if you wish to publish it online, I'm going to show you on my account so that you know how it is published, right? And if you feel like doing it for your websites, or in future if you build something for a client or yourself, then you will also know how to do that. Okay, so the agenda here is to sum up all the information in maximum 3 days, so that you have 2 days to finally build on it, and you will be simultaneously doing it. What will happen is, in the first half, we are going to explore, wherein I'll share my knowledge in 1.5 hour lecture or maximum 2 hours, which leaves you with another 2 hours to explore that. And after doing that, in the second half, you apply it on your own project, which is going to be the final submission as well. Clear? Okay? Great. Now, another thing which we have to consider is, these things also needs to be placed in a layout so that user can access it. We can't just dump all these things. See, management system can keep the content in the backend nicely, so that whenever somebody demands it, it can pull it and then show it. Okay, so let's understand the concept of front end, back end, and database as well. And this is higher level. All these things are higher level, so I'll just put it there. Now this is essentially the starting point. We are using PHP as the language, and we will not write a single line of code in this unless it is required. A little bit of advanced customization if you want to do. I'll show you where to put those codes, and probably you can use ChatGPT also to generate some codes and utilize that. So we'll go through all those things. Now, there is a front end, and you have a back end, and you have a database. Now these terminologies should be clear in your head, and there is a server. Okay, so front end and back end both are deployed on a server, and the back end is connected with a database. This thing I have already discussed in one of the sessions, I remember. Let me just put it again there for the sake of clarity. So front end and back end have conversations. Front end is the side with which our end user interacts. This is for end users. Now backend developers interact with it but via codes, right? So front end and back end relation is that the queries are being sent from front end to back end and vice versa. And the back end makes a request to the database which is delivered to the back end, and then back end serves it to the front end. Now how the front end is going to render it will be decided by the client side code, and this is called server side code. Okay? Now understand this. The server side code is the PHP. The database is MySQL, correct? This is the server side code. MySQL is the database. What about the client side code? Now this client side code is generated by the server side code. The way we look at things is essentially generated by PHP engines only, but in a different language. And that language is known to everyone as HTML plus CSS plus JavaScript. So that gives you the client side. So the end user interacts with these components. Okay? DOM elements, data object model elements. So when I type something, what I'm doing is I'm typing inside an input box, right? And if I hit enter or submit that, that information goes to the server side. PHP processes that information and takes the action. If that information is supposed to be stored somewhere, it stores it in the database. If it is supposed to use that information to fetch some details, for example, I could type it in a search box as well. So if I'm typing it in a search box, what it is doing, it's sending it back to the backend, and the backend contextualizes, okay, the user is typing it in a search box, so I'm supposed to give the result this result. Okay. So that's how it works. Let me just wrap this up into one. Now, so this all started with here. In order to build that layout in which the PHP is going to populate the content in developers term, it's known as hydrate, but just let's use a layman language, populate, because hydrate is used in a React scenario more, and we are not using React. It's not a web application. We are developing a website, e-commerce website. There is a difference. Web applications work in a different way and uses a different stack of language. Okay? So here for the layouting, layouts plus aesthetic or style or whatever you want to call it, we use one another thing, which is another plugin, and that plugin's name is Elementor. Now, you can use it, you can build it without Elementor as well, but it makes it easier for people like us, designers, to quickly build the layouts using Elementor. Okay? So Elementor gives you layouts plus aesthetic, content management, content so that you can manage the content nicely. So you can build the content or beautify the content, structure the content, wherein the management system supports the backend to efficiently manage those content, and the database is simply there for storing it. So you will have absolutely zero interaction with the database, but just for the sake of knowledge you should know that I'm using MySQL. This is MySQL. Okay, well, take some time, have a look at it. Before we can start with the management system.
सर जो फ्रंट एंड और बैक एंड का जो सिस्टम है जो फ्लो है तो वो अपना क्लाइंट साइड कोड से होता है
फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड क्लाइंट साइड कोड इज द वेबसाइट जिसके साथ आई एम क्लिकिंग हियर एंड देयर वट एवर आई एम डूइंग दैट इज क्लाइंट साइड कोड नाउ दोज क्लाइंट साइड कोड्स आर डायनामिकली जनरेटेड बाय PHP. We are not hard coding those. Now some of the codes can be hard coded, but for example, if I type in a search box, so the page I get is generated then and there with the data which is stored in the database, right? So if it is generated then and there, right there, that means it never existed in the backend. So the content management system is allowing the backend to generate a page, fresh page, right? So that is why we use PHP. So PHP is capable of delivering such things. If you just use these, you will have a static website. अभी इतना ओवरलैप्स हो गया है ना कि कोई भी चीज़ तुम हार्ड हार्ड नहीं बोल सकते. जैसे मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि HTML CSS एंड जावास्क्रिप्ट से सिर्फ स्टैटिक वेबसाइट बनेगा तो ये गलत है. लेकिन फिर कॉम्प्लिकेट हो जाएगा, बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेट हो जाएगा. तो फॉर द सेक ऑफ सिंप्लिसिटी लेट्स नॉट गो देयर इन दोज डायरेक्शंस, है ना. क्योंकि जावास्क्रिप्ट जो है वो नेक्स्ट लेवल पे काम हो रहा है. इनफैक्ट नेक्स्ट JS करके एक फ्रेमवर्क है जावास्क्रिप्ट का विच अलाउज यू टू बिल्ड वेब एप्लीकेशंस. नेक्स्ट JS और रिएक्ट एक फ्रेमवर्क है. नेक्स्ट JS, ठीक है, ये समझ में आ गया. अच्छा, अब मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम्स को समझते हैं हम. ठीक है, तो मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम को समझना एकदम आसान है. इसको मैं इतने आसानी से समझ सकते हैं हम. देखो वर्डप्रेस में ना प्राइमरली जो मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है वो वर्क करता है बेस्ड ऑन कैटेगरी. अगर कैटेगरी समझ में आ गया तो वर्डप्रेस समझ में आ जाएगा. और कैटेगराइजेशन समझना इतना डिफिकल्ट नहीं है. ये किचन के मॉडल पे काम करता है. अब मान लो तुम किसी के घर गए और तुम्हें बोला गया कि चाय बनाइए, तो उस केस में आपको अगर बिना किसी इंफॉर्मेशन के किचन में छोड़ दिया गया, हाउ इजी इट इज फॉर यू टू मेक द टी. That will determine how efficiently the things are kept in the kitchen, how easily things are kept in a way that any stranger can go there and access the kitchen efficiently. चीनी कहाँ रखी होगी? चीनी रखी होगी चावल के साथ, गेहूं के साथ, है ना, दाल के साथ रखी होगी, ऑयल कहाँ रखा होगा, सब्जियों के साथ रखा होगा, है ना। सो और जो कुकिंग के वेसल्स होंगे वो फ्रिज के अंदर रखे होंगे, है ना, और मिल्क रखा होगा तुम्हारा सिंक के बगल में। ऐसे ही होता है, नहीं? ऑड लग रहा है कुछ? सो हम कैसे ऑर्गेनाइज करते हैं किचन को? वी ऑर्गेनाइज इट ऑन वेरियस parameters. So for example, whole grains, we tend to store it साथ में, है ना, टुगेदर, सो दैट इट्स इजियर फॉर अस टू फाइंड आउट। नेचर भी एक जैसा है, जो स्टोरेज कंडीशन है वो भी काफ़ी सिमिलर होगा, चावल का, गेहूं का, दाल का, पल्सेस का, बीन्स का। तो all these things can be categorized as whole foods, right? Then vegetables need to be kept fresh, right, and at a certain temperature, so we put it on the freezer, and freezer में भी deep freeze में नहीं, डीप फ्रीज में डालते हैं वेजिटेबल, तो नीचे डालते हैं बकेट में। सो देयर इज अ प्लेस, है ना। शुगर होगा हमारा कहाँ पे रखा हुआ, जहाँ पे यूजुअली सॉल्ट मिलता है, मसाले मिलते हैं, उस तरह से आप रखते हैं। ठीक है, चाय की पत्ती भी आप उसी तरह से कहीं ना कहीं स्टोर रखेंगे एक पर्टिकुलर जगह पे। ऑयल जो है उसको एक जगह पे, सारे अलग अलग वैरायटी के ऑयल जो है एक जगह स्टोर करते हैं। सो थिंक ऑफ ऑल दीज एज कैटेगरीज। यूटेंसिल्स भी आप एक पर्टिकुलर तरीके से रखते हैं कि प्लेट्स इस रैक में रहेंगे, जो कुकिंग करने के लिए यूज़ होते हैं कढ़ाई वगैरह वो किसी एक इसमें रहेगा, हाँ, पैन एक में रहेगा। सो वो कैटेगराइजेशन इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज दैट मेक्स थिंग्स एफिशिएंट, एंड नॉट जस्ट फॉर यू but also for the end user. A cluttered backend will not be able to give very efficient outcome to a front end. ठीक है, so the way WordPress categorizes things, you could look at it as pages. You have pages, you have posts, and then if you add WooCommerce, that gives you catalogs. So you can think of the pages as static pages where the information is not changing very often, but it can be made dynamic by using short codes, posts on the other hand dynamic and requires categorization. And catalog follows the same thing. Okay, so the management system of WordPress plus WooCommerce allows you to segregate the content into three formats. One is pages, another is posts, and you have catalogs. Right? Clear? Okay. And what do we organize in that? Text, images, videos, and hyperlinks. And these things are done with the help of Elementor, which allows it to put things in a layout, make it more aesthetic. And catalog is coming from WooCommerce, right? Perfect. Now we require a setup on our local systems to run WordPress. Okay? Now that part can get a little tricky, but fortunately now we have a tool and a free tool which can make it very, very simple. Right? So let me show you what that tool is. You go to localwp.com, localwp.com, and download this. It's around 760 MB, shouldn't take much time. I have already installed it, but it's simple, very simple. Anybody can start and tell me the process. It's localwp.com, localwp.com. Download it and install it with all the default settings. Just click next, 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 next. That's it. Get it working. And you should have an interface like this.
एक रिप्लेसमेंट होके भी पाइनएप्पल डिजाइन का एक भी रूप में तो हमें मेल आया है मैसेज आया तो आ सकता है
जाइए, आपकी मर्जी है, मैं क्या बोल सकता हूँ इसमें.
सॉरी बट ओके
Absolutely no point ना, sorry or anything. You want to go, go. आप लोग भी जाना चाहते हो? जाना चाहते हो तो चले जाओ, मैं होल्ड करता हूँ फिर थोड़ी देर. You go finish that and then come back. ठीक है, एक बार इंस्टॉल कर लो, उसके बाद आगे बढ़ेंगे. ठीक है. After installing this, you should see an interface. Here it shows one. I have already created one site. हो रहा डाउनलोड, हो जाने दो पहले.